looking at more than just mobile use cases, something more unified going forward. So moving along onto basically the last session of here, and it's a good session, the session I really want to get into, so really keen for, we're going to have basically a short presentation from me, and then we're going to have a panel discussion. And so we've heard a lot about, coming from the process of TIP, how we've talked to the ideation, the definition, but we're kind of accelerating over here to end the session about what about the new stuff that's been developed, going along from where the such things as the DSSG has gone to today. So basically, some of the two things we mentioned, if you were with us this morning, the DDBR and the DOS Pheonix. What are those? I'm just going to move the slide so you can see something on here. I'm just wary people taking pictures. So DDBR, taking the whole disaggregated concept that we had with DCSG and everything else below it, is essentially what we're positioning as a core or backbone router, something you use for backbone applications or peering applications. But the difference, of course, is that we're taking a close architecture as opposed to something more monolithic that you need kind of a forklift to put inside your rack, and then you're kind of limited by fabric in many senses and aspects like that. So we're looking at what's taken from the hyperscaler side and putting it into the service provider side, where we have basically disaggregated fabric and also leaf, where we're basically as line cards. So this was basically an idea in Q3 2020, and we're happy to report that right now, as a public here, we do have Turkcell, who has officially launched the first in the world for us in terms of a production deployment, which we're going to discuss today. So yeah, really keen to get into that topic. Secondly, on Pheonix. What's Pheonix? Pheonix is our basically disaggregated transponder that's capable of 400 gig. Again, looking at all of those elements of the disaggregation nature that we followed through, hardware, software, but also the case specifically with Optical is the fact, the transceivers themselves are interoperable in many ways. And we're very happy to say that we also have someone here who we're coming to speak about a deployment that completed recently. So we'll get there in due course. So without further ado, we're going to move to the panelists. And we have a crowd, happy to get into it. So format is, they're going to come up, we're going to have a quick introduction to themselves, and we're going to get them all to sit around here, and we'll start the panel session. So really, just to introduce first, from Turkcell, Batur Genç, if you would please come up.
Hello, everybody. This is Batur Genç from Turkcell. I'm the head of the IP network in Turkcell. Turkcell is the leading digital operator in Turkey and also operating in 4 countries. We are a fixed and mobile service provider, and also beyond that, we have several digital services like IPTV, music platforms, personal cloud, and so more. And beyond that, we have TechFin services to our customers, and also we want to help our enterprise customers with their digital transformation journey. So we have digital business solutions. So next slide, please. What we done with DDBR use case, we deployed one small cluster of drive nets in an internet gateway role. With peering with hyperscalers, actually we migrate our meta peering to this peering gateway router. It's a small cluster deployment, 2 forwarding engine and 2 fabrics, but it's beauty of disaggregation, it can scale up to 192 terabits. We put it with DriveNet software, UFI space hardware, and our system integrator, Odin. It's deployed now, first deployment in TIP, as Hanson mentioned, and it's live and carrying traffic now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Batur. And next up, I'd like to introduce Ray Chang from UFI Space. Ray, could you please come up?
Hola. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Ray Chen. I'm the engineering director from UFI Space. So UFI Space is a leading company for open and disaggregated open solutions. And we are building our solutions for the entire end-to-end 5G carrier from SS aggregation, edge network, and core network. And particularly for DDBR, we have contributed our distributed disaggregated chassis solutions, which is a pay-as-you growth model, and we can provide the flexible capacity from 2.8 T up to 691 T. That is a huge capacity that the traditional chassis cannot be exceeded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. And now I'd like to introduce Ran Almog from DriveNets.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Ran Almog, DriveNets Head of Product Strategy. What is DriveNets? I'm not going to read through, details of DriveNets. We build networks like cloud, not networks that are served to purpose a cloud, but they are built like a cloud. And it means essentially three things, right? But everything boils down to three things. It's a scale. It can scale from something really, really small to effectively endless capacity. It's any type of functionality that can run on top of it, just like you have any type of functionality running on top of a cloud. And the third thing which kind of describes the cloud is the consumption model. The way that the application is not tightly coupled to the hardware, but the hardware is kind of allowed as kind of a resource, and multiple applications can then consume several portions of or partials of this resource in order to enable themselves, to being launched into the network. Certain attributes here of kind of describing how does this come into play. Lots of aspects to this, and I'm not going to dive into all the details now, but if you want to meet us, we're right there.
Thank you very much, Ran. And so that's really really good to hear that this is the group where we talk about DDBR. We're going to get more detail here. Now, just on the other side, I'd like to introduce all the way from South Africa, Michelle McCann from Telecom.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So just a little bit about Telecom. We are a neutral co-location provider in South Africa. Quite a challenging environment, if any of you have read about the news and power and what's happening there. But essentially what we've done on the Pheonix project, if you go to the next slide, is what we've had to do is on our data center infrastructure, you'll see Cape Town 1 was our original data center. We've had to now build a hyperscale data center 35 kilometers away and be able to extend our interconnection offering back through to Cape Town 2. So quite a unique challenge from a South Africa perspective, which obviously A, distance, and B, was we had to look at higher capacities to be able to allow this easy interconnection between the two sites, and that's where the Pheonix has come into play.
And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Koji Asahi from NEC.
Thank you, Hanson. So, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Koji Asahi from NEC. So, quickly overview of the NEC. So we have several segments for our business. Among those segments, so we have the network services segment, and so we offer the end-to-end solutions to the customer, like carriers and network operators. So on the higher layer, so we offer the operations and the system integration. And so in the infrastructure point of view, so we offer the wireless system and also optical and IP network, as well as the submarine and the optical components. So next, please. So this is what we have done for the Pheonix project. So we have developed the 400G transponders with the hardware and software disaggregated architecture. So so we have combined the white box hardware, and so we have developed the network operating software on top of that. So so we put them components together, and so NEC have worked as a system integrator for this system. So I'm very super excited about to introduce this solution to the market.
Thank you very much, Koji. So I think it'll be a bit awkward if I just stood here, so I'll go grab this seat. Mind if I join you? So, we've spoken a lot in the session about, the process, but here we are at kind of the edge, going on there. So, kind of want to direct those questions. I'm going to start with you, Michelle, and I'm going to go to you, Bato. New deployments, open disaggregated, early deployments, that is. What's the story?
Well, I think in terms of the way, and you'll meet Andrew, my colleague, as well from a technical point of view, but the way we had to look at it was more from a strategic point of view. So if you look at what's happening in Africa, particularly, there's a huge amount of investment. I mean, Meta's doing to Africa, so bringing huge capacities down. If I just look in our data centers, we've got a ton of interconnection happening. And for us, this was probably the first time that we've ever had to trench our own fiber between data centers at very, very high capacities. So we had to kind of look out of the norm, the usual suspects, and say, how are we going to be able to connect these two data centers at high capacities when we know people landing in our data centers are going to require that? They're going to require something that's resilient. They're going to require these high capacities, low latency type environments. And that's probably why we joined the NEC team and had a look at this new offering.
Thank you very much. And just on that frame of capacity and requirements over there, Bato, what's going on with Turkcell?
For Turkcell, open and disaggregated technologies we see as a next phase of our core network virtualization strategy. So it's the continuation of our virtualization strategy in open and disaggregated IP and transport network. That's why we focus on disaggregated strategy. On the other hand, it's diversification of supply chain. It's a good benefit for us, and it creates new alternatives. And new alternatives helps to create a healthy competition environment. When there is a healthy competition, everybody wins in that situation, because with healthy competition, you can get the best products with best features, new technologies at the optimum cost.
Well, thank you. Well, look, I'm hearing about the fact there's sudden challenges with increase of capacity, a need for supply chain diversification. That's great. For both of these initiatives, they started in Q3 2020. So, I want to start with you, Ray, and then we're going to go to you, Ron. So, in terms of what TIP has done, in terms of getting these into the field, how has that helped yourself as you from your company at UP Space?
Okay, so UP Space have designed and sell. Let me use a DCSG as an example. We have designed sale for 4 years. However, 3 years ago, when we start to approach Euro customers, we found we are not be able to leverage our existing 1 or 2 key solutions for all the carrier customers in Europe. And then later, through a TIP DCSG and later DDBR, we actually revisit our product roadmap and redefine all the features. Then after that, we are able to leverage the requirement through TIP, and then to define our 1 and 2 specific platform to all the carrier in Europe. That would be very actually efficient for us, because hardware development is a long turnaround time. So if we can leverage only 1 and 2 for most of the carrier, then that is a win-win, because we can accumulate the value for all the carrier.
I mean, that's a great message, and that's exactly what we set out to achieve. So, Ron, what's your opinion on that? Is there to add?
Let's take a step back. When we started this, it was called DDC, and it was part of OCP. So we had a lot of work done with AT&T, and it went into deployment. But this is, as Ray noted, this is one operator, and the requirements were very much tailored. Now, the requirements are coming on the network functionality side. Well, everything infrastructure was kind of open and well-defined. And this is also what boiled down eventually into DDBR, and this is where TIP came in. And the way the TIP came in is that they kind of formalized inputs not from just one operator, but from multiple carriers. And for us, as a software vendor, now we are running on the functionality side, any type of functionality can be run on the DDBR cluster. That's the way that we constructed our architecture to begin with, and also aligned with how TIP has put it into definition. But what we get eventually is kind of a unified set of requirements that other operators can then just take in as an off-the-shelf product, as what Turkcell has done. In a way, it's kind of an off-the-shelf, ready to deploy. It's already field-proven for the last few years in live commercial environments, and very stringent and robust. So we had all that, to back us up as we went into it. And then what TIP came is kind of formalized it and enabled it to the rest of the industry.
Great. And it's really encouraging to hear the fact you're baking it into your business's processes. It is your strategy. Now, I'm interested to hear from Koji about, what does that look like on the optical side, specifically with NEC?
Yes. So, so for NEC, so we are latecomer to the TIP community. So we have participate since the 2 years ago. So what we're going to do is we can refer the standardized model and architecture. And so to refer that, typically, we start with come up with the architecture design and configuration or some other upstream design. But thanks to that deep effort, we can refer the standardized models. So we, as a result, we can shorten the development lead time by 30% in comparison with the traditional way.
That's great. That's really impressive to hear. The fact that, again, it's literally been 2 years and we're here talking about field deployments. Now, it can't all be, roses and chocolate here and there. So really, I want to come to Bato and Michelle. Michelle, I'm going to start with you first. So in the efforts of what you're looking at now, so what are some of the challenges that you're seeing, you hear, and in terms of what are the challenges you've faced?
Well, I think from and I'm going to more talk from an Africa perspective. So one of the major challenges that we face is, from a commercial perspective, is, when you start looking at rand-dollar exchange, it becomes quite a tricky thing. We all know what's happening with the markets at the moment. And so trying to look for a vendor that's flexible enough to be able to work with us in these challenging times. The other side of it was around skills. So if you look at from an Africa perspective, there's a huge lack of skills in order to be able to deploy and manage solutions. And that's also where, thank goodness for the NEC team, who was able to help us with that. But not just help us and drop the box and leave it and they're going to manage it. They're actually taking our team on a journey. So it's a journey of, here's the infrastructure, here's how we're actually going to teach and enable you to be able to grow with that environment. And I think that's very important, because if you just, drop the box and then hope somebody else is going to manage it, if someone's major connection goes down at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to be phoning you. I'm going to be phoning my team and saying, please fix my customer. So I think that's a key journey that we've only just started on. But what I've seen, over the last, couple of weeks, to the month, is NEC is taking us on this journey of training the team, which is fantastic.
And thank you for that. And, Ray, Ran, Koji, I'm going to hold on to that point. I want to come to you about that. Bato, please.
So what is the major challenge? Major challenge is that it's new. It's totally new for everybody. It's new for way of working. It's and different from legacy architectures. It's totally new architecture and technology. It's a multi-party and need strong alignment and coordination between parties. Now we have a hardware vendor, software vendor, system integrator, operator need to coordinate all of this. This is the main challenge, that it's new and different from our traditional way of working as an operator. In that case, the system integrator's role is growing and become more critical to align and coordinate all the parties. That's critical for us. In our deployment, that we are lucky that our system integrator Odin did a great job, make all the coordination between parties and make alignment between DriveNet, UFI-Space, and Turkcell.
Thank you. So, we've heard some of the challenges there, and I'm sure those have been top of mind internally as well. So, Ran, I want to start with you, then I'm going to go to Koji. Ran, what's the initial response? Or
It's spot on. People love to improve, and they hate change. So when there's something new coming in, it's hard to adopt it, right? So this is the type of challenges that we're facing. I think this forum, I think this event, and what TIP is doing is exactly there to solve this issue, to put it on stage, the testing cycle that you have on tip, the actual deployment and the commercialization of it and the publication of it will enable other operators to see that this is the real deal. Now, we have other deployments, obviously, other use cases. This is already running several years. So this is stable, and now the audience, so now the entire industry knows about it. And you know, coming back to what you were saying, getting something new into the network and who's in charge, because it is disaggregated. Who is the one called to make, in order to make this operational? And the way I see, well, coming from the perspective of DriveNets, it's DriveNets, right? It's the control plane that runs multiple devices. That's the only element which actually exists in every component of the solution, and therefore that can only be the one phone call to make.
And I think that's always been key, right, for your operators, the one throat to choke, if I may use that term.
We prefer not to choke our own throat. Yeah.
So Koji, I think you mentioned in your introduction about NEC as a whole. So,
Yes.
so what do you have to, if you may?
Yes, so it is our pleasure to be a system integrator to contribute to the construction of the operator's network. So when the operator build the network, so they pick up the best element from the choice, and so then bring them together in one total system. So it is hard to say if this works well or not. So this is also why we are here, and so we have a rich experiment in constructing the total system and the end-to-end management. So we can give you give them a know-how and technology aspect of experience. So this is also so it's important to be
Okay.
system integrators.
No, thank you. And I think, as you're saying, as Michelle alluded to, you're providing a valuable service there. And lastly, for yourself, Ray, thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I think as a hardware solution provider, our first thing is to integrate our hardware platform with North partner like DriveNets. And then particularly at DDBR, we actually, the integrated solutions, we already test and or under testing by not only Tuxedo, KDDI, XRTel, Liberty Global, and all the carrier. I cannot mention all of them right away. But I think the new thing is that just like Tuxedo mentioned, system integrator will be the most important role because this is a totally new model. So from UFSpace, we can actually provide a technical training to the system integrator as well as the operator for them to get familiar with our solutions before the POC and testing. So actually, including hardware provider, software provider, as well as the system integrator, we are working closely. So we are able to provide and deliver a solution to operator, and then we can optimize the path to resolve the problem with actually a confidence solutions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ray. Look, I think I could sit here and talk to you all day about some of this, but I'm wary that there might be some people who forgo lunch and are hungry as well. So I do have one final question that's for all of you. So we're going to start with you, Bato, and then we're going to move to you, Michelle, just on the sense. So from what you've heard, from what you've experienced, what you've heard, and some kind of a direct under responses from the suppliers, what does the future hold here for yourselves?
Future sounds good. With the cloudification and virtualization of everything, this disaggregation technologies takes a major part in the industry and grow every day more and more.
Michelle?
So I think the future is more around how we enable our ecosystems within Telecom. So what we're hoping to have achieved by deploying this infrastructure within our network is to be a bit of a thought leader and an example to the rest of our customers. Because in our data centers, we pretty much got all the major network operators from an Africa perspective sitting in there, and it would be great for them to actually, come through, see the hardware, speak to the teams, try out the solution themselves. So that's sort of where we're thinking of taking this forward.
No, that sounds great. And Koji, I'll start with you, and we'll move on to Ray. So
Okay.
how's that on your side?
Okay, so from NEC point of view, we are looking to the future of the network. So we would like to treat the network resources like as a computer resources. And so when the service requirement came, so we want to provide optimized and optimized and efficient resources to the service. And so to do so, there are tons of challenges such as the automations and the optimizations and blah blah blah. It's our pleasure to contribute continuously to the community.
Great. And on to you, Ray.
Okay. I think specific related to DDBR or DOR scenarios. We believe 400 gig plus OpenZR plus and OpenXR will be getting more and more popular and mature in next year. Especially recently, we got lots of demand for this kind of scenario, and then carrier can leverage the 400 gig router or switch to extend their use cases through the OpenZR Plus and OpenXR. So this is actually quite excited. And also thanks for TIP and open standard that we can actually converge several new platforms and then leverage this new technology and then share of them to all the carrier at the same time. So we can actually have the technology become more mature in the shortest time.
Thank you. And something that resonates with us is that we do see IP-DWDM, coherent optics as really something that really that the operators want as well.
Yeah.
And Ron, over to you to close it. Really.
When we look at disaggregation, it started on the hyperscale side of things, and the one purpose that they were trying to solve is getting control over their network or over what was going on and into their network. In a way, TIP is doing the same, but now on the service provider space. Eventually, when you have one vendor who is providing all of the solution, kind of a one-stop shop, he also has control. And when you're disaggregating it and getting components from multiple vendors, no one vendor has full control. It means that the control is at the hands of the customer. So the service provider now has control. The way I see evolution, to your question, is a growth of the ecosystem. So it's not just Eufy Space as the provider of the hardware. No offense, Ray. But it's not just DriveNets on the perspective of the software vendor as well, right? Multiple components or multiple players can chime into the same ecosystem and expand it. So from Batul's perspective, if, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years down the line is not satisfied with me, can swap me out as a software vendor and still run on the same infrastructure that he got from Eufy Space. So that's a possibility or a capability that exists in this type of an ecosystem. And another evolution will be use cases. Not just routing, but additional network functions that can be mounted onto that same infrastructure, management network functions that would enable this DDBR to kind of be a part of a larger network and include other components. This type of an evolution is what I see.
Thank you very much. And I'm really glad to hear a vendor saying they don't mind being swapped out. So that's
I'm the one throat to choke. That's mine, my own.
That's our session here. Thank you very much to all of you for participating with this.
Thank you.
So thank you all. That marks the end of our session today. So we have one final session that's starting at 4:45 here. It's called Community Talks, where we will have a lot of other topics that we haven't mentioned here today, what's going on around the fiber and the transport community. So please join us at 4:45 if you'd like to hear more about what's going on as well. Thank you very much for coming, and hope to see you then.